So why both of these instances or objects store1 and store2 had the same ID here? That's because simply the store ID that we are using now, it's a member of the object. So each time or every time you create a new object, it will create a new instance and it will use a different version of this store ID, a version specific to this store ID. But what we want to do is to have a global sequence for the store ID sequence, and to make all the objects or all the instances from the same class to point or use this sequence. By doing that, if our sequence is global, so each time we increment this sequence, it will be incremented and it will be available to the new object to get a new ID. How to make that? Simply, we will start to define private static member called the next store ID, and I will initiate it by 100. The static member here will be on a global scope. It will be on the scope of the class now, the type, the kind, not the object. So it will be just one instance of this variable, the next store ID, and it will be on the class level. What that means, let's see it together. So here, instead of using this one, I will just increment the static member, then I will store the new value of the next store ID inside the store ID of the current object, as you can see here. So now if I run our program again, what will be the case? Let's see. Also static private. Enter. We just need the enter. So I will run it now and see what will happen. So now you can see the first one is 101 and the ID for the second store is 102. Why that happened? Because when you come here to this statement and you create a new instance of the store leg class, you will call the constructor here, and what will happen in the constructor, you first initialize the internal member values, then you will increment this static member. So this static member is not specific to this object or the current instance that you are creating now. It's on the class level. So it's only one copy or one version of this variable, and all the objects are using. So now the next ID will be 101 because you incremented here, and then this 101 will be stored in the store ID here for the store 1 object. When you come again and create a new instance, store 2, you will go and call the constructor again, but this time for store 2 object. So you will initialize the internal members as usual, but now you will increment the next store ID. But before incrementing it, now the value stored in the next store ID is the 101, not the 100, not the initial value. It's the 101 because it's one version of this instant this of this member or this variable, and all the objects are using it now. So it will start incrementing the last updated value of this variable. So now after incrementing it, it will be the 102, and you will store it to the store ID of the store to object that you are creating here. So after finishing these two object creation statements, you will have the next store ID as 102. If you go and create a third one here as well, so remember that the static member is on the class level. Run it now. So we have working as expected 101, 102, and 103.